Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for us being a little tardy today, but we've had some IT problems, which seems to be the story of my life these days as well. But we'll get our meeting started. We are recording the meeting because their IT problems continue to exist. The first thing I would like to do this afternoon is recognize a long-standing member of the Source Protection Committee, being Ralph Kruger. Ralph has informed us that he's moving on to greener pastures, going to work a little bit at traveling and consulting business and whatnot. And he tells me it's been an insightful 17 years of enjoyment. And if I could just ask everyone to put their hands together and thank Ralph for his continued service to Source Protection. Now, Ralph, I didn't talk to you about this earlier, but did you want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you to the Grand River Source Protection Committee for allowing me to be part of the process. I've seen a lot of good things happen here, met a lot of good people, and it's a good process. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of it. Thanks.
And thank you for that, Ralph. So continuing right on, we're into updates, and Judy Maxwell from Long Point is going to talk to us about the Source Protection Authority. So,
thank you, Chair Steve. Congratulations on your appointment as chair. I think this is the first time I've seen you. I missed the last management meeting. So the one item to share with the committee is that there's been a 3-year funding agreement for April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2027. That agreement has now been signed. Staff was able to negotiate a very good agreement that allows the source water work to continue for the next 3 years. The management committee has also approved 4 member updates, and there'll be 2 returning members and then 2 new members joining over the next few months. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
thank you, Judy. Does anyone have any questions of Judy at all? Now, in my excitement to get the meeting started, I thought that we'd done the roll call and because I'd asked the question, but I misunderstood the answer. So Caitlin, please.
Alan Dale,
Present.
Larry Davis,
Present.
Linda Dixon,
Present.
Amy Domaratsky,
Present.
Paul Emerson, Chris Garretts,
Here.
Andrew Henry, Ken Hansberger, Matthew Yarnig,
Here.
Lauren Jones, Ralph Kruger,
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
And Ian McDonald, again, proxy for Jeff Morose. Alex Pickett.
Here.
And Ian McDonald, proxy for Peter Ryder.
Here.
Von Salt.
Present.
George Schneider.
Here.
John Sapoulis.
Present.
Bill Strauss. Bill Unger. Linda Vandendriessy.
Present.
Brian Whitwell. And Phil Wilson. We have quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Caitlin. So moving right on with our latest updates, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Beth Forrest and Monica Lemke are going to update us.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. Hopefully you can hear me okay, but please let me know if you can't. So myself and Monica are here today, as well as Mohammed Ahmed, who is an intern with our branch, has been supporting us with a lot of the branch's work lately, and just thought this was a great opportunity for him to see a Source Protection Committee meeting run and the types of conversations that happen here and what's discussed. So he'll just be listening in with us. Building off of what was said earlier, there are the 3-year transfer payment agreements in place now for all source protection authorities in the province, which is fantastic. We've never had 3-year agreements before. The previous agreements were 2-year, and before that, it had only ever been 1-year agreements. So this is really, really great. It offers a little bit more stability with the program. So we finally have all of those signed and in place, with the expectation that there probably have to be changes to the agreements within the course of that 3 years as things change on the landscape. The other thing I wanted to mention was just that there is an upcoming chairs meeting. I'm not sure if that's already going to be discussed later, so I will just say generally that there will be an upcoming chairs meeting. There hasn't been one in a little while. The project managers are also invited to that meeting, but it will be a good opportunity for our director, Kirsten Service, to interact with the chairs and discuss with them the program, if there's challenges, any issues, and some success stories, and just kind of hear feedback from the chairs of how everything is running. And then next, I wanted to talk about the Section 34 guidance. So you'll remember the Section 34 amendments are the ad hoc amendments for source protection authorities to put into place. And we have guidance out there that kind of details the process, but it is old and a little outdated, and some aspects of it might not be as helpful as we wanted it to be. So we've been working for a very long time on revamping this guidance, and are very hopeful that it will be released within the coming months as a tool for source protection authorities to be able to use to guide their Section 34 amendment process. Lastly, I wanted to share that when it comes to annual progress reporting, so you'll remember that May 1st is the deadline every year for annual progress reports on the implementation of your source protection plans to be posted on publicly on the Source Protection Authority's website. And as the province, as a ministry, we like to kind of give a roll-up of all of that information in the form, the last couple of years, it's been in the form of basically a one-page placemat. And that was just sent out yesterday to all the project managers, and it just details various statistics across the province, so not just for one particular source protection area or region, but all of the statistics all into a one-pager. So starting from when the first plans were being implemented, all the way to 2022. The reason why it's only 2022 is because we received the 2023 results May 1st of this year. So we're still analyzing those results, and then we'll update the placemat once those results have been analyzed and share that externally as well. So some examples of the type of information that will be on the placemat, which you can, if you're interested in taking a look, you can ask Sherry. She should have a copy of it, but it details kind of the different source protection plans, how many policies are being implemented, kind of like percentages of policies being implemented or in progress. It talks about prescribed instruments, about applications reviewed and risk activities regulated through those prescribed instruments. It talks about how many risk management plans have been put into place in the province, how many activities have been prohibited through Section 57 or through land use planning or through prescribed instruments, and just general other actions like septic inspections. So if you're interested in seeing the provincial picture of where everyone is at, Sherry should have a copy of that. If not, then Sherry, please let me know if you didn't receive that. I think that's it for me. I know we'll be discussing the stormwater piece a little bit later on, so I'll touch on that once that agenda item comes up. Any questions?
Is there any questions of Beth? None here. Does Monica have any contribution, or did you take it all, Beth?
I was a bit of a hog today, so I took it all.
Okay. No questions. Thank you for your presentation. It's much appreciated. I
Mr.
understand.
Chair, can I interrupt?
I missed that.
Hello? Yes, it's Brian Whitwell.
Well, Brian, yes, Brian?
I guess I was muted when Caitlin was doing the roll call, just to make sure that I can still talk and stuff.
I'm seeing nods, yes.
All right, thank you.
I understand that Conservation in Ontario are not with us today. So we'll move on, and everybody's had a chance, I know, to read and review the agenda. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the agenda of September 26, 2024 be approved as distributed. Andrew and Paul are the movers and seconders. Is there anybody opposed to the agenda as presented? And seeing none, we'll say that's carried. Declarations of pecuniary interests. Does anybody want to declare anything there? Seeing none, we'll move on. The minutes of the previous meeting were circulated. There is a small error, resolution 24-06-05 wasn't included in your package, and that's been caught. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the previous meeting on June 20th, 24 be approved as corrected. Ralph and John? Mover and seconder, or Ralph and John? Any discussion with respect to that? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we'll consider that carried. Hearing of delegations, none. Presentations, none. Correspondence. We've got a fair bit of correspondence, 4 different pieces that have come in. 3 from the minister regarding the approval of section 36, the update on the Kettle Creek source protection plan dated the 24th of July, 2024. The Grand River Source Protection Plan, Section 34 Amendment, dated September the 9th, 2024. And lastly, from the minister, Section 36 update for Catfish Creek Source Protection Plan, dated the 10th of September 2024. There's also an interesting letter that's been added in his correspondence from Nathan Hyde, and I won't read that to you unless you insist I do, dated June the 28th, 2024. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that those 4 pieces of correspondence be accepted and as distributed. And I'm sorry, I'm missing John. Okay. Please. Thank you. And a little bit of a reflection there in some of those signs. Is there any discussion about the correspondence? Yes, sir.
Yes, with respect to Nathan Hyde correspondence, I'd like to suggest that we direct staff to report back to our committee whether or not we should be pursuing the importation of excess soil in a wellhead area as a local threat. The correspondence raises a serious concern. They also have involved their legal opinion, municipal solicitors, and if it's happening there, it might happen here as well. So I'm going to suggest that that the motion, be, carried and adopted.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have a seconder for John's motion? And that is Ken. Ken, thank you very much. Any discussion with respect to John's motion? It is an interesting letter. Certainly could be relevant. I think Sherry's going to be speaking to it in a wee bit with the first thing. No discussion or, sir? George?
Yes, thank you. I'm just not sure I fully understand why there is a concern about the about adding additional controls on the importation of soil. The new regulation that came out a couple of years ago has provided a lot of very good guidance on how excess soil can be used, and it seems to be a fairly comprehensive regulation. So I'm not sure I've seen anything in that correspondence that really indicates what the concern is about it. Perhaps it is about who needs to provide oversight. Maybe there is some kind of a conflict. The regulation clearly identifies the Ministry of Environment as sort of the regulatory body. I think in the example of this mentioned in this letter, it's an aggregate site, and there seems to be some conflict between whether the Ministry of Natural Resources, under its responsibility under the Aggregate Resources Act, should be the regulator versus the Ministry of Environment, which is the authors of the excess soil regulation. But so I'm a little bit concerned about sort of jumping on the idea of putting a motion forward without really fully understanding what the issue really is. So that's I'll just put that out there for discussion. I'm not sure I want to support it at this time.
Yes, Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with a lot with George there. I'm not really too sure either, and that's all the more reason why I think we should, why I was going to support John's motion, because I think we should get some staff feedback and some report on this, because I know over my time with this committee and being on municipal council, there's times where Clean Water Act was supposed to be dominant, and yet the new Aggregate Resources Act has some other very strong language. And so I think it would be good to that's why I was going to support the motion. Let's get some stuff back from staff and get some more information on this, because it certainly is happening in other parts of the province, and we have a lot of aggregate in our Lake Erie region, so I'm sure it's going to happen here soon if it's not happening already. Just as a bit of an aside, I had a landowner in my municipality, and he had land abutting onto the 401. They were going to do some work there, and he got a permit from Ministry of Transportation and everything, and they said, we're going to take the soil we take off the 401 here, and we'll just put it right over here in your land. And of course, he had another ministry show up, and he got fined. And he said, well, the government said you wanted to put it there. And so it's that jurisdictional conflict between, which ministry is responsible here? So is it MNR? Is it MECP? And so I think we should get some more information from staff. Thanks.
Alan, just through you, Mr. Speaker, that does make sense to find out more information about it, because if there is confusion about who has jurisdiction in what circumstances, it would be worth clarifying that. And there may not be one answer that serves all, right? I would think, for example, on an aggregate site, you're going to need to meet the requirements of the Aggregate Resources Act, but at the same time, you're still under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Environment, so Conservation and Parks. So perhaps some clarification is warranted if if people at the GRCA could look further into it and report back. So I'd be supportive in that context.
Thank you, George and Alan, both. Chris Garretts would like to say something.
Yeah, this is near my house. in the municipality in which I'm mayor. So I think that Benham from CTC will have all of the information. But George, I think you nailed it. This is the result of about 18 months of conversation between the aggregate resource people, the Ministry of the Environment, the town of Orangeville, the township of Amaranth, and the applicant. The MNRF will allow excess soil to go into a pit, but they will not oversee that. They will only do that if the applicant relinquishes their aggregate license, at which point they are no longer responsible. The Ministry of the Environment has the excess soil regulation, and their comments, which Benham can provide, I'm sure, in his report, are that is a guideline that needs to be followed. They will not provide any oversight. At the same time, the town of Orangeville, who's owns the wells where that have the captured the wetland protection areas where this pit is located, was not comfortable accepting the certification from a third-party qualified person hired by the applicant. So it ended up in this whole gray area where absolutely no one was willing to take responsibility. It just so happens the applicant has since abandoned the idea. They're no longer going to fill it at this point, which is disappointing because, just for some more added context, this was topsoil that was coming from an adjacent property that was going to fill the entire pit within about 6 weeks. It's a massive operation. So now they're going back to their original plan, which was to spend about 20 years filling it with construction spoils from their vacuum truck business, which is not ideal. But it's nobody would take responsibility at all, which is why CTC decided to flag this as a local threat in this particular area.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions of Chris? Yes.
Just further to this comment, sorry, just further to these comments that I'd like more information because there's a gravel pit in Brant County that's right on the line of GRCA and Big Creek. And at one point, there'd be close to 200 trucks lined up between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, ready to dump into that gravel pit. And if it's monitored by MNR, who monitors gravel pits, I think that's the fox watching the hen house. I do believe that MOECP should be the overseer of that, because there were so many calls to the municipality about what's going in there. Some of the trucks were actually lined with plastic, and everything that was within that truck that was in the plastic holder in the truck went into that almost abandoned gravel pit. So I think I agree. I think we need more information from this if we can gather it somehow, in how that this should be controlled or watched. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Any further discussion, comments to Len or John?
I have a question.
So,
Beth,
Beth,
if you want to go.
Yeah, just to say that, thank you. Just to say that, adding on to what Chris said, that if it is an aggregate site with a permit or a license, if there is excess soil that's proposed to be put into that site, they have to conform with the soil rules that are in Regulation 406, which I put in the chat just in case anyone wanted to take a look. That's the Ministry of the Environment regulation about excess soils. So they have to conform with the standards that are in there. And yeah, it definitely is an active conversation going on with CTC, with Benham, as well as some of the municipalities and MNRF. understanding their concerns. And I know that CTC was proposing to go forward with a local threat request. And I just wanted to say that we have told Benham this, but in the technical rules, in order to add a local threat, the activity cannot be managed or regulated through another piece of provincial or federal legislation. So this is a regulated activity. So that could limit your ability to request a local threat. So I just wanted to flag that as well. But certainly Benham will be able to provide more information. And if you need more information from us as well, because we've been very involved in that conversation, we are happy to support and provide you with that information.
Thank you, Beth. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Fawn.
Thank you. I'm not sure who can answer this, but I understand the concern. I want to say the summer prior to the new regulations going in, we had an issue here on Reserve where developers out of Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge area were offering money to landowners here and on Six as well to take loads of soil. So the reason it got brought to our attention is I had somebody knock on my door at 6 o'clock in the morning and drive me down the road with them to say, what is this? And there was loads of trucks, just like someone else mentioned, and they were dumping on the property. And while we don't have enforcement here, so there's no enforcement on Reserve as far as Mississauga the credit goes. And we asked for proper documentation if the soil had been inspected. They provided a bill of lading, which is nothing. And so we had to call the OPP, and it took us several times to stop the trucks. But before that happened, like hundreds had dumped, and they were there leveling it out. Our biggest concern was we have this huge wetland there, and I don't know for those of you that aren't aware, but the reserves, we have a lot of green space, and we still have quite a few wetlands and things. And there, we've got species at risk here that you can't find off Reserve in abundance like you can find here. And that was my biggest concern. But so the soil got spread all out, and the way the property is, the land is laid out, it drains back into that wetland. It turns out that through word of mouth, Six Nations had already shut these delivery trucks down because they had it tested and it was contaminated. We had a conversation, we council at the time had a conversation with the landowner, CP holder really, because we don't really own our land still. As a reservation, it's federal lands, and so I have an acre that I have my house and everything on. And I say it's mine, but it's not really mine. It still belongs to the federal government. So he agreed to allow us to have it tested verbally. And then when I had the company come to take the soil samples, he showed up and he took all the samples and kicked them off the property. Nothing has been done with the property. It's just been sitting there, but there was a small wetland that had been filled in when they did all this dumping and leveled it out. And so our biggest concern is we have no policies, we have no enforcement, and we can write all the bylaws we want, but if we don't have bylaw enforcement, we're our hands are tied. And OPP is pretty much like, well, there's not really much we can do. Like, we can come and put a stop to it temporarily, but and thankfully the loads, the soil stopped because those developers had to get rid of it. But I think really my question is, I'm currently working with a consultant on a policy for on Reserve for a lot of things, soil included. But again, we can write all the policy and rules and laws we want. If there's no enforcement, we have nothing. And I think my question is for those bodies that do have power on federal lands, is there something that you know of that we can utilize under federal laws to prevent things like this from happening and to enforce any rules or laws that are written there? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take so long.
Thank you, Fawn. That's interesting comments. And whether there's anything federally. I personally don't know. But that's something that staff can maybe look into when they, if this motion passes here today. Any further discussion at all? Yes, John.
Yes, I heard all the comments made and the understanding my motion is for staff to look into all these issues, not just basically say yes, no, but do a proper background of what's happened at in that CTC area, the issues that are raised that they're aware of as well, and sort of come up with a comprehensive reasoning why we should or should not. I heard what the MOCP representative said, but I value the opinions of staff.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Beth's got her hand up.
Yes, sorry again. I just wanted to respond to Fawn. I don't have an answer, unfortunately, but I was curious if there is, because I think there's bylaw making authority available to First Nations under the Indian Act. I could be completely wrong about that, but I'm wondering, has that option maybe been explored if a bylaw could be put in place to prevent that from happening?
We have loads of bylaws. It's the enforcement piece we don't have.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, Linda.
So I think it's all very good discussion and thank you, Fawn, for your comments, because I find that concerning. Yes, it's regulated by federal government, but it still has impacts on water quality in the province. And I understand what Beth is saying, and I know from my municipal experience, yes, we can put bylaws in place, but as Fawn said, it's the enforcement piece. And I think that's what the crux of this is the regulation is there outside of Six Nations, but the regulation is there, but is and how is it being enforced? And I think that's what John's kind of getting at as well too, is where does it lie? Where's the rubber hit the road? And that we can assure that there's not contaminated soil going into these areas and it is being properly looked at by the jurisdictions involved. So yeah, I find it very, very interesting and has some wider sweeping implications, I think.
Sorry if I could just add one thing, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but you know, Phil is something my municipality's been dealing with. You know, I'd say at any given time we have 3 court cases ongoing, which for a municipality of 4,000 people is significant. GRCA has been great helping us with enforcement in regulated areas, but just remember the federal lands issue is not a First Nations issue. It is a federal lands issue, and there are many places that are federal lands. So, for example, we now have thousands of cubic meters that have been imported onto a registered airstrip in my municipality. They currently have a stop work order. It's tenuous whether or not that's going to hold because we don't have jurisdiction. It's technically right now it's because we do have jurisdiction over site alteration, but they are also looking to bring in thousands of cubic meters more, with no proof that they are actually going to develop an airstrip. I would suggest that maybe an owner of a property whose business is importing fill is probably not being honest in saying that they're developing an airstrip, and they're actually using it as a you know, as a dumping ground for excess soil, and using the or the loophole of federal lands as an excuse. So it's Fawn's point is great, and it's probably something that could affect us all everywhere across the watershed.
Thank you, Chris. Further discussion? Perhaps, Caitlin, we could read the motion back.
The motion would be for the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee to direct staff to provide a report back to the committee on the issue of excess soil and wellhead protection areas, and whether or not the Source Protection Committee could pursue this as a local threat.
Thank you, Caitlin. I don't know the best way to record the vote here because I got so many black screens here from people with their video not on. Perhaps we could go through from start to finish as a recorded vote.
Allendale,
Yes.
Larry Davis,
In favor?
Linda Dixon, Amy Demaratsky, muted. Okay, yes.
Sorry, that was in favor. I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry about that.
Okay, Paul Emerson, Chris Garretts,
Yes.
Andrew Henry, Ken Hunsberger,
Definitely.
Matthew Yarnig,
Yes.
Ralph Kruger.
Yeah.
Ian McDonald, you have 3 votes,
In favor.
3 times.
Sure.
Fonsalt,
In favor.
George Schneider,
In favor.
John Sapoulis is
In favor.
for. Linda Vandendriessche, yes, okay, she's muted. I see her. Brian Whitwell,
In favor.
and I think that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? Oh, Alex, sorry, Alex Pickett.
Yes, you forgot me, but yes.
I think it's safe to announce that motion's been carried. Thank you, John. So moving on, we're now going to have some reports presented. And Sherry's going to be up with the first one to talk to us about SPC 240901, Source Protection Program Update. You're up.
So through you, Chair. It's a lot going on, but I will try to go through this fairly quickly and open it up to questions. So as Beth mentioned, and Judy as well, we now have a 3-year agreement in place for Lake Erie region. So part of our work plan is going to be completing our Section 36 updates for Long Point region and the Grand River. And you've started to see reports coming forward on that already. We also have 9 planned local Section 34 amendments for the Grand River Source Protection Plan. You'll see pieces of 4 of those today. We're going to continue our development of water quantity policies for GGET. We also got funding for some technical work to update delineation of Wellington County WAPAs. And ongoing plan implementation support to implementing bodies and AODA compliance among all of our other regular things that are happening. In terms of Source Protection Committee member updates, just wanted to mention for this month, Andrew Henry has been reappointed and is joining us for another 4-year term. Thank you once again to Ralph Kruger, who will be stepping down after this meeting. Next in the report, I did want to bring an update on the letter that the SPC sent to the minister following our April 25th meeting regarding Bill 162. So the ministry did not send a formal response, but did meet separately with both Chair Walsh and I to discuss the SPC's concerns regarding the implications of the bill on the region of Waterloo's drinking water supply. So in the response, the ministry noted that with the work happening on the region's tier 3, if the risk rating comes out as moderate or significant, the SPC will have additional policy tools available to help address the concerns. We will be bringing an update on this to the SPC probably early next year. And that will be going into the Section 36 update. So we'll bring more information forward on that in the near future. The next item, nitrates in the Grand River. So you'll recall during our June SPC meeting, Jan Ivey gave a presentation on nitrate levels in the Grand River. Following the presentation, Paul Emerson put forward a motion directing staff to investigate the role of the committee and identify potential actions that the committee can take to support drinking water system owners in addressing elevated nitrate levels at the intake. So I wanted to kind of go over what we are doing. So currently we're working through the Section 36 update for the Grand River. As part of that, staff are working with Region of Waterloo, City of Brantford, and Six Nations to describe the nitrate levels at the intakes within the Grand River for each of those municipalities. So that will be incorporated into the Section 36 update. And through doing so, we will also discuss any options for policy tools that may be available at this point in time. Moving further into the future, we will continue to collaborate with municipalities and the ministry to explore the feasibility of delineating an intake protection zone for the issue contributing area for one or more of the intakes. So this would include discussions with the implementation working group to explore policy options for all of the affected municipalities. The timing of this work is currently unknown. It would happen after the Section 36 update goes forward. And just wanted to reiterate that this is the first time that a surface water issue would be identified for a river intake. So it is anticipated that a number of technical and implementation challenges could arise as we work through that. And then I also wanted to mention that as part of the broader water quality program, GRCA staff do continue to engage watershed municipalities, First Nations, provincial and federal agencies in discussing the nitrate issue. So we did hold an information sharing session with some local academics in September, and there's a meeting of the Water Managers Working Group planned in October that will focus on nitrate levels. Yeah, so that's the end of that update, and then just a couple other quick updates related to Lake Erie region. So the implementation working group reconvened after a short summer break. We will continue to meet monthly to work through the final revisions for the Section 36 updates. So in September, we talked about threat enumeration, chemical threat policy approaches, and we also reviewed the wording for fuel threats and monitoring policies. So all things that you can look forward to seeing in the upcoming meetings. And then finally, we do have a number of updates and amendments happening. So if you look through the last part of the program update report, it does set out timelines and remind you of where our SPC reports are kind of connected to one another as we move forward through the process. So that's the end of that report.
Thank you, Sherry. So we need a resolution here that report SPC-24-09-01 Source Protection Program update be received as information. So looking for a mover and a seconder. Mover is Al, seconder is John. Thank you. Rather than going for a recorded vote and everything, because I can't see everybody, I'll just ask if anybody objects to receiving that for information. So those that are not on video, if they could speak up, that would work. And hearing none, we'll decide that's carried. Okay. Alicia's going to talk to us now about SPC 240902, Section 34, Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan for the Regional Municipality of Waterloo. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So this report presents Section 34 amendments to the Grand River Source Protection Plan, specifically concerning the region of Waterloo. And these amendments were released for public consultation at the previous SPC meeting in June. So over the summer, a 48-day public consultation period was held from June 24th to August 6th. And as per a requirement of the Section 34 process, municipal council resolutions were received from all affected municipalities prior to this period. So no comments were received during public consultation, and as a result, no additional edits were needed to the amended Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan documents. And the Source Protection Committee may now release the Section 34 amendment to the Source Protection Authority, who are responsible for submitting the amended plan to the MECP for approval.
Thank you, Alicia. So we're looking here for a resolution, actually two resolutions as printed in your agenda. That report SPC 240902, Section 34, Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report in the Source Protection Plan, Regional Municipality of Waterloo be received as information. Mover is Andrew, seconder is John. Again, so we don't have to do the recorded vote. Anybody that doesn't have their camera on, can you just speak up quickly? And hearing no dissenters, we'll just say that's carried. The second part of that resolution is that the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee released the Section 34 amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan to the Source Protection Authority for the submission to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. Again, a mover and a seconder, please. Mover John, seconder George. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, we'll declare that carried. Alicia, are you going to do the next one too, or is Caitlin can come up and join you? Okay. Alicia and Caitlin are going to talk about the SPC 240903, Section 34 Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report in Source Protection Plan for the County of Brant.
Okay, so this report presents Section 34 amendments to the Grand River Source Protection Plan, this time specifically concerning the County of Brant. So the amendments include changes to source protection technical work and also source protection plan policies, which Caitlin and I will both speak to. Early engagement with the MECP on these pieces is complete and comments have been addressed. So we've been able to incorporate the associated edits into the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan documents. And as part of this Section 34 amendment, a conformity exercise was completed to bring all of the affected chapters into alignment with the 2021 technical rules. And just want to note that a municipal council resolution will be required prior to entering public consultation at a future date. So in terms of the assessment report updates, there are a number of items to highlight, which I've listed here, and I will note that the majority of these technical work updates have been previously brought to the SPC. So I would encourage you to check out the corresponding SPC reports if you're looking for more information. But I'll go through at a high level all of the kind of primary components here today. So percent managed lands, livestock density, and impervious surface area data for the wellhead protection areas in the Paris drinking water system have been updated to account for urban growth in these areas. And for the second bullet here, sodium and chloride issues were identified in accordance with Technical Rule 114 at the Bethel Road well field, and an ICA was delineated in association with this. Significant drinking water threats in all of the County of Brant drinking water systems have been re-enumerated to align with the 2021 technical rules. And lastly, existing condition sites have also been reevaluated under the 2021 technical rules. And I'll pass it off to Caitlin here now to speak to some of the policy pieces.
So a summary of the amendments that were made to the source protection plan policies is provided in the report in Appendix B. We've also included an Appendix C to the report, which contains the proposed policy text for the County of Brant's source protection plan chapter. And the comparison tables show what the current approved policies are, which would be under the 2017 technical rules, and then alongside the proposed amended policies, which would be brought under the 2021 technical rules. So there's a description included in the tables as well of the edits and the rationale for that policy update. And the idea behind that is that we would take this rationale and then incorporate that into the explanatory document pending the committee's endorsement. So when interpreting the policies that are in the table for the County of Brant, the circumstances under the 2021 technical rules should be used for the County of Brant's water supply systems and the City of Brantford's IPZ, where it extends into the County of Brant. And then the circumstances under the 2017 technical rules should apply to the Oswego intake protection zone where it extends into the County of Brant. And so that system in Oswego will be brought under the 2021 technical rules as part of the Section 36 update to the source protection plan. So some of the major policy component changes for this Section 34 update include new and revised policies for the application of road salt and the handling and storage of road salt and the storage of snow. These amendments address the changes to the road salt related threats under the 2021 technical rules, but it's also because of the new sodium WAPA ICA for the Bethel Road well field. These revised policies were previously presented to the SPC, and there are a couple reports listed there for you if you'd like to look back for reference. There were also several text edits made to the policies, and that was to bring them into conformity with the 2021 technical rules. Generally, there's no change to the policy approach in that case. It's just a wording exercise to make sure that the sub-threat names match what are in the new updated technical rules. And then there were some revised policies as well to capture additional vulnerable areas where significant threat activities are now considered significant under the new rules, where they weren't previously before under the 2017 rules. Sorry. And then there were also some interim policy approaches that were adopted. And this was because the 2021 technical rules in certain cases have created a policy gap. But we are still working with the municipalities on determining what they want to do to fill those gaps. And we're undertaking that consultation as part of the Section 36 update. So for this amendment, there is an interim approach in some cases being adopted until that time. And we've included some rationale in the table there for consideration. That rationale will go into the explanatory document. And then once we undergo the Section 36 update, if there's any additional policy changes pursued at that time, we would update that rationale as well. And then finally, there were some new and revised policies for significant, moderate, and low liquid hydrocarbon pipeline threats. These policies were presented a while ago, back in December 2021, and they've received support from the County of Brant. So now they're just being incorporated during this amendment. These policies are consistent across all of Lake Erie region, and they've actually been adopted already under the Section 36 updates to the Kettle Creek, Catfish Creek plans, and then as well as some of the Section 34 amendments that we've already seen for the Grand River Source Protection Plan. So next steps for the Section 34 update for the County of Brant is there, if the SPC releases the plan for pre-consultation, that is planned to occur in October. And then any comments that are received during that time will be brought back to the committee for consideration before we proceed into public consultation. And that is the end of the report.
Thank you, Alicia and Caitlin. This IT stuff's getting ahead of me today. We've got two resolutions that report SPC 240903, Section 2034, Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report in Source Protection Plan, County Grant be received for information, and that the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee release the Section 34 Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report in Source Protection Plan for pre-consultation. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Ralph, mover, seconder, Len. Same rules. Anybody that's off camera there, if you could speak up if you're not in favor. Yes, Alan?
Just a question on the report here. So through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. We saw some reports before about St. George. And there was just an announcement made a couple weeks ago about St. George, and they're going to, I think it's 1,500 housing units have now been approved. And the article I read talked about upgrades to the wastewater treatment system that will now allow this to proceed. And then it also mentioned the water treatment plant. So I wasn't sure if that was accurate, and I wasn't sure if that was pertaining to the updates and amendments we've already dealt with, or is this going to be incorporated into a new round? Because there is a change to the water treatment plant. I wasn't sure if there was a change to the wellhead protection area. Maybe the article, I wasn't reading it properly. Maybe it's just the wastewater treatment plant, but I just wondered if staff could help me out with that one.
Thank you through you, Chair. We haven't had an explicit conversation with the County of Brant about those updates yet. I suspect they are related to the previous updates that you would have seen. There are 2 bedrock wells at St. George that are not yet online. So they may be associated with those existing infrastructure that just hasn't been connected yet. But I can't comment with definitive certainty on that, unfortunately.
Okay, we do have the resolutions with a mover and a seconder on the floor. Again, anybody opposed? Seeing none, well, now that is carried. Alicia and Caitlin are going to continue to help us this afternoon with SPC 240904, Section 34 Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan, City of Brantford. Alicia?
Hey, thank you, through Chair. So this report presents Section 34 amendments to the Grand River Source Protection Plan, specifically concerning the City of Brantford this time. And this amendment will include changes to the source protection technical work, but also the source protection plan policies, again, which Caitlin and I will speak to together. Okay, so early engagement with the MECP on these pieces of work is complete and comments have been addressed. So we've been able to incorporate the associated edits into the, sorry, flipped prematurely there, to the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan. And similar to as was described with the Brant Section 34, a conformity exercise with the 2021 technical rules has been complete. And I will note that municipal council resolutions from all affected municipalities will be required prior to entering public consultation. Okay, so specifically looking at updates in the assessment report for the City of Brantford, managed lands, livestock density, and impervious surface area data for the Brantford IPZ1 and IPZ2 have been updated to consider growth and land use change. And significant drinking water threats in the Brantford IPZ 1, 2, and 3 have been re-enumerated to align with the 2021 technical rules. So given the large spatial extent that's associated with these areas where significant threats are possible, this involved the collection of data from the city of Brantford, county of Brant, and the region of Waterloo. And I'll pass it on to Caitlin now.
So for updates to the source protection plan for the city of Brantford's chapter, similarly, the same as we provided you for the county of Brant, there is a summary of the source protection plan amendments in Appendix B of your report, and then also a detailed table in Appendix C, which shows the proposed policy text alongside the old approved version, which is under the 2017 rules. So when interpreting the policies for the city of Brantford, the circumstances under the 2021 technical rules should be used for the city of Brantford's intake protection zones. The circumstances under the old 2017 technical rules will apply to the Oswego intake protection zone where it extends into the city of Brantford. And as I mentioned previously, it will be updated to the 2021 technical rules under the Section 36 update. So major policy components for this Section 34 amendment for the city of Brantford are actually very similar to amendments that were made for the county of Brant. There are new and revised policies for application of road salt, handling and storage of road salt, and the storage of snow. Again, this is to align with the changes that were made to those threats under the new technical rules, but also to incorporate the updated impervious surface area data for the city of Brantford's IPZ1 and IPZ2. And again, these policies were previously brought to the SPC back in November of last year, and the report for that is referenced as well. They're same as the county of Brant. Text edits were made to align the policies with the new rules, generally no change in approach. And then there were also some revisions made to the policies in order to capture those additional vulnerable areas where significant threat activities weren't considered significant before, and now they are under the 2021 technical rules. Similar to the county of Brant, there were some interim policy approaches that were adopted in order to align with the 2021 technical rules. Again, we are undertaking a deeper dive into these policies and consulting with the municipalities as part of the Section 36 update. So we've incorporated these approaches as part of the amendment, but there may be further changes during the 36 update. And then there was, lastly, the new and revised policies again for the liquid hydrocarbon pipelines. They're consistent across Lake Erie region, so they look the same in Brantford as they do generally for the county of Brant, and they're just being incorporated now as part of this Section 34 amendment. Same next steps as you saw previously for the county apply to the city of Brantford as well. So pending the SPC support to release the Section 34 amendment for pre-consultation with implementing bodies, we will begin that in October. And then we will bring back comments to the committee prior to going to public consultation after that. And that is the end of the report.
Thank you, Caitlin. We have two resolutions arising out of that. That the report SPC 240904 Section 34 Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan, City of Brantford, be received for information, and that the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee release the Section 34 Amendment to the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan for pre-consultation. Looking for a mover and a seconder. John and Linda, thank you. Any discussion or questions of Alicia or Caitlin? Yes, Vaughn, please.
Thank you. I have a question. Recently, some of the liquid hydrogen pipelines and people have been asking questions about impacts. Do you have someone that has a lot of knowledge about just about liquid hydrogen and everything, the impacts too. Oh, and if I could, maybe put me in contact with him so I could ask some questions. That's all.
We're just having a little discussion here. That's maybe the minister fund that we could ask. I'm seeing a nod of the head. Any further discussion with respect to the?
Oh, I was just gonna, sorry, through you, Chair. I can follow up with you, Fawn. I just sort of flagged to Steve to look to see if MECP was gonna pipe up, but I can definitely follow up with you following the meeting.
Okay, good. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sherry. Taking that on. Thank you, Fawn, for the question. Any further discussion? Yes, Beth.
Hi. Yeah, so there's a few different, I guess, routes to go about questions related to liquid hydrocarbon pipelines. Are you just thinking like broadly about, concerns about them, or is there a particular one that you are concerned about? It's just any of them. Yeah, so the jurisdiction, again, it's a jurisdiction thing. If it crosses provincial or international boundaries, then it's federal jurisdiction. If it's contained within the province, like of Ontario, then it's the Ontario Energy Board. So they would have information on it as well. And then the actual, like, I've known a couple of other source protection committees, Halton Hamilton comes to mind, where they've actually been in contact with some of the pipeline owners and have received presentations from them in the past. So that could be a route to go as well. I guess depends on the type of information that you're looking for. So there's just a couple of resources available.
Mm-hmm. It's mostly just impacts, like if there were leaks or anything like that. The other thing I have, while I have here, Beth, really quickly, is carbon storage. So CO2 storage in the ground, like those kinds of issues too, like impacts for that kind of thing as well. What the risks are.
Yep.
We can Google anything, but I mean, I prefer to talk to somebody who actually has the knowledge and experience. And if you can email me maybe and just suggest, or anybody, if anybody has anybody that with that expertise, that it would be appreciated.
Yeah, I can, Sherry, if you want to. I don't want to step on toes, but I can work with you if that would be helpful, if you need me to. There's been a lot of discussion about carbon storage lately too. Like there is some enabling regulations that have been put in place to enable carbon storage projects in this province. And so far we haven't had any, but that's definitely something that I can see coming. There's other jurisdictions that do have carbon sequestration and storage that projects that are ongoing. Alberta comes to mind. Yeah, it's kind of a new and emerging one for this province. So I can work with Sherry if you want, Sherry. So just let me know. I can help if you need support.
Good, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Beth, for jumping in there and helping with that question. Fawn, I don't know whether this is helpful or not, but the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry have been out doing some consultation across the province with respect to carbon storage. I actually attended one of those presentations myself. Interesting things. So we got the resolutions, we got a mover and a seconder. Anybody opposed to what's been presented? And the answer's been received. Lots of people not being seen now. I guess we're good to go. So we'll move right on. You're a busy girl this afternoon, Alicia. SPC 240905 for the City of Hamilton Communal Well System Update.
sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure it was being shared. Thank you, Chair. So this SBC report presents updates on technical work at the City of Hamilton's Linden Communal Well System. So a replacement well has been installed at this system and the original well has been decommissioned. And as a result of the new replacement well, the WAPA A of the existing system will be shifted with no new modeling requirements to adjust the existing WAPA B, C, or D. And the water quality at this replacement well is considered equivalent to the original, so no drinking water issues have been identified. And there are no new significant drinking water threats at the system. In fact, the majority of previously enumerated significant threats have since been determined not present. So here's an updated threats table for this system. Early engagement with the MECP on the technical work associated with this replacement well is complete and no comments were received. So in terms of next steps, we will be incorporating this system update into the Grand River Assessment Report and Source Protection Plan. And it's anticipated that we will bring this amendment back to the SPC in October for consideration and to release for pre-consultation. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Alicia. So 2 resolutions falling under that presentation, that report, SPC 240905, City of Hamilton, Linden Communal Well System update be received for information, and that the Lake Erie Region Resource Protection Committee directs staff to incorporate the City of Hamilton Linden Communal Well System update into the Grand River Assessment Report. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Ralph and Chris.
Sure, I'll move it. I also had a question.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any discussion on that resolution or those 2 resolutions?
Well, I did have a question.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, Chris.
So how far apart are these wells? The old one and the new one?
Yeah, so the wells are only 3.5 meters apart.
And and is the permitted rate changing?
No, the replacement well is basically a 1-for-1 replacement. It's been drilled to a similar depth, pumping from the same aquifer, no changes in taking.
So this isn't even required.
So it is actually. We've been told that a Section 34 amendment will be needed to bring this replacement well online.
I just did one a month ago where we did everything and had a new permit water system license, and we're pumping water to system in 8 days after the well was constructed. And that was Aziz indicated that since the wells were exactly the same and nothing else was changing, there was no Section 34 amendment required. If it is, this is a great example of a waste of time. Respectfully, there's a lot of effort here that is not required. You know, there's a lot of going back and forth for municipal resolutions and whatnot for a simple replacement. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I don't know if Sherry wants to comment on this further, but we do really appreciate you flagging that, because this has been something that's kind of been a hot topic for discussion for us. But for this particular case, we were given instruction that approval is needed, and I'll let Sherry comment further.
So through you, Chair, this is an issue that the committee will probably see come up again in the near future. We did have some lengthy discussions about this at our recent IWG meeting as well. And we are looking to bring something for consideration to the SPC. Our current approach that we've had to take is when we initiate early engagement with the ministry, we are also looking to confirm whether SPP approval is needed to bring the water online. And in this case, we have been told that is in fact the case. So we were hoping to move this forward through our Section 36 update, which would not require a council resolution, and requires it would be a more efficient process overall for everyone. But because the approval is needed, the Section 36 update would delay that for the municipality. So we are having to move forward with the Section 34. That's kind of where we're at and why we're bringing it to you at this point. But we do continue to have discussions with the ministry and IWG to better understand why it seems as though there's different interpretations for different systems that have been happening over time and perhaps even currently.
Beth, your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks for raising this. This is something that's come up a lot, I think, across the province, about these kind of minor changes, if it's a well replacement or a well twinning, where there's no major changes, maybe like no changes to pumping. Maybe it's just the WUPA A is, moving slightly, but WUPAs B, C, and D are remaining the same. So we see these examples a lot. And unfortunately, the way that the regulation is written, both Regulation 287 under the Clean Water Act and Regulation 205, which is the regulation under the Safe Drinking Water Act, that kind of links our process with the Drinking Water Works Permit and municipal drinking water license process. The way that it's been worded really speaks to mapping of vulnerable areas. So if there's like vulnerable area mapping changes, then it's a Section 34 essentially should be done. All of that being said, though, the determination of whether or not a Section 34 amendment is required is ultimately up to the Source Protection Authority. If you believe that, so Section 51 is kind of that other piece of Regulation 287 under the Clean Water Act that speaks to administrative changes, typographical errors, that kind of stuff. So if the Source Protection Authority believes that whatever changes that you are making to your assessment report or source protection plan fit in to one of the categories listed under Section 51, that is the SPA's decision to make, not ours. So, I mean, we have had a lot of conversations with source protection authorities and try to provide, a layout of what's kind of currently required in regulation and the different options. But ultimately the decision rests with the Source Protection Authority. I hope that was helpful, but happy to take questions.
Thank you, Beth. Any further discussion with respect to Alicia's most recent update? Is anyone opposed to accepting that? Seeing none, we'll announce that carried. Which brings Caitlin back to the podium, I believe. Caitlin's going to talk to us about SPC 240906, Section 36 update. Proposed changes to non-municipal sections of the Long Point Region Source Protection Plan and supporting documents. All yours.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any slides for this, so I'll hopefully just quickly provide an overview of the report for you. So the original Long Point Region Source Protection Plan was approved back in 2015. And following approval, the minister specified a timeline that we need to do the comprehensive review under the Section 36 of the Clean Water Act. So we are undertaking that review and undergoing that process currently. Revisions to the municipal sections of the assessment report and the source protection plan will come to you for review and consideration at various points during that Section 36 update process. But we've also done a number of revisions. We're proposing these revisions to some of the non-municipal sections. These are primarily editorial changes. We don't feel that they require the same level of scrutiny by the committee. So we're bringing them to you in this report in a high-level summary. to help hopefully streamline the process when we get deeper into the Section 36 update. So the summary of these proposed changes to the non-municipal sections involve a lot of formatting edits. This is to aim to address some of the inconsistencies that we found among the different documents. For example, paragraph spacing, font sizing, really cleaning up headings, and making sure that the document is in compliance with the AODA standards. When we're doing those changes, we will ensure that all the mandatory content is maintained. So the mandatory content in the assessment report, source protection plan, and the explanatory documents are found in the Act and regulations. And so we are going to ensure that we don't remove anything that is mandatory and needs to be there. But we will aim to remove duplicate information where it's not required, in hopes that we could significantly reduce the length of the documents and also improve their readability. So the majority of that mandatory content that I mentioned is in the municipal sections, but there is some pieces that are in the other preliminary chapters of the assessment report and also in Source Protection Plan Volume 1. And that is the general information that is included to assist the reader in understanding these documents. Also notably, the source protection plan and the explanatory document under regulation have to include information on our consultation activities. So we've noticed that that mandatory consultation information is actually repeated several times across several different documents. So what we want to do is remove some of that and relocate it to where it's actually mandated under the legislation, and then it will only exist in that one place. So those where you can find this information is outlined in your report there. And then, of course, at any time, we're going to keep detailed summaries and verbatim records of any comments that we receive. So while these won't be in the documents themselves anymore, they will be maintained internally and available upon request. In addition to the mandatory content, there is a lot of supplementary content in these supporting documents. And that is because under the regulation, the Source Protection Committee has the ability to include this supplementary information, anything that the committee feels is important in assisting in the understanding of the plan. We've done a review of this supplementary content, and we want to make sure that it's current, that it's still useful to the stakeholders that are using the plan on a regular basis. And what we found in our preliminary review is a lot of this original content was tailored to the early development stages of the program. And so since the source protection plans have been approved for several years and they're being implemented, much of that content's now outdated. So it actually requires a lot of staff effort and time to frequently edit these documents and to keep them current. So pending the support from the committee, under the Section 36 update to the Long Point Source Protection Plan, we are going to remove any instances where the supplementary information is duplicated across several documents, and we're going to revise the text to reduce that high edit burden and hopefully future-proof these documents better moving into the future. Where some information has been removed, we're also going to make sure to include a reference to an external source of information. First, so for example, instead of speaking to all of the details of the prescribed drinking water threats, we will include a reference to the technical rules, and that will direct a reader to find that more information if needed. So next steps for updating these non-municipal sections in the source protection plan is we are going to incorporate the changes, and then we're going to provide a detailed summary, excuse me, to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and that will assist with their review of the plan during the submission phases. We have not provided that detailed summary to you in this report, but if you'd like to see more details, we can provide that at request. And then the Section 36 update as a whole, we're anticipating that we're going to submit it to the ministry for early engagement at the end of this month, hopefully. And then we will bring this back to you prior to initiating pre-consultation with the implementing bodies. So before we go for pre-consultation, we're going to bring the revisions to the document text. You will see that as track changes and be able to review it at that time. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Caitlin. Again, 2 resolutions that report SPC 240906 Section 36 update proposed changes to non-municipal sections of the Long Point Region Source Protection Plan and supporting documents be received for information. In that the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee directs staff to incorporate the proposed changes into Section 36 update to the Long Point Region Assessment Report, Source Protection Plan, and explanatory document. Looking for a mover and a seconder, please. Alan, I got yours. Seconder, please. Chris, got you there as well. Thank you. Any discussion, any further questions of Caitlin? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. Anybody opposed to accepting these two resolutions? Don't see anybody coming off of the screen here. So we'll announce that as carried. So business arising from previous meetings. Got two items here, the local egret threat request under technical rule 119. Discussion has been referred to the Lake Erie Region IWG for further consideration. So that's remaining with the implementation working group for now. And the second piece that's still outstanding is the MECP response to SPC concerns regarding Part 4, policy implications for stormwater management sub-threats 2.3, 2.4, report number SPC 240605, draft policy approaches for sewage sub-threats. And Beth, did you want to say anything with respect to that one?
Yes, thanks so much, Chair. I appreciate very much, just wanted to say off the bat, the committee and the SPA bringing this forward. It's actually generated a lot of really great discussion, both internally, and we've had meetings with Sherry and with municipalities, with Kyle Davis. It's been really eye-opening, I think, for me at least. But the base question of whether or not risk management plans can be used for stormwater threats. So right off the bat, Part 4 policies, including risk management plans, can't be used to address stormwater threats that require an environmental compliance approval. And that's under Section 23, I think, sub 3 of Regulation 287 under the Clean Water Act. But you've brought these examples to us where there might not be an ECA for a variety of reasons. So we're continuing to explore that, and unfortunately don't have a clear-cut answer for you, but just wanted to let you know that we are very much looking into this. We stumbled upon some exemptions that are in Regulation 525 that I certainly previously didn't know about, exemptions with relation to sewage works like low impact development projects for residential properties where they wouldn't have an ECA and possibly could still be a threat under the Clean Water Act. So we're just kind of exploring that and trying to understand that a little more, and also understand the scenarios where maybe an ECA is actually required, but for whatever reason, the facility doesn't seem to have one, which is a bit of a gray area of, could Part 4 policies be used there or not? So we continue to have these meetings, both internally and externally, and we will be we're planning on providing guidance on this that will be broad to all of the source protection authorities, because it absolutely is applicable to everyone, to clarify this, just because it was in the technical rules guidance that was released in 2022 for the 2021 technical rules. It did very explicitly say that Part 4 shouldn't be used for stormwater facilities. So we need to very much clarify that with not just you, but with all of the other SPAs in the province. So once we've kind of figured out all those various scenarios, we'll let you know when we've landed on a definitive answer. And we very much appreciate your patience as we try and tease this one apart. It's just a little bit more complex than I think we initially thought. So we can commit to reporting back at your next SPC meeting. Hopefully we'll have an answer by then, or provide you with an answer in advance of that meeting if we land on a definitive answer by then.
Thank you, Beth, for that update. We look forward to your formal response at some future time. Other business, is there any, John?
Yes, I'd like to put forward a motion with respect to private wells, additional protection for private wells. As we know, the Walker report was talking about overall groundwater protection for all drinking water wells. Current regulations, as we all know, applies to municipal wells and does not apply to a large number of public wells in the province. And I'm aware that a lot of the eastern SPCs are advocating to expand the program to include these private water wells. And I know that the MECP has introduced best practices, which is a good step, but it doesn't do anything to protect the small private well owner, the residential communities that don't have any wells, such as municipal wells, such as my municipality, Puslinch. And I realize to implement the regulations currently to all private wells is going to be onerous and it's not practical. But I would like to move that the implementation working group consult with the other eastern SPCAs to see what their thoughts are and see if there's something that can be done in our area as well to enhance the protection for our private wells. We talked about earlier on a previous motion about all these fills coming in type of thing. And a lot of these fills are going beside private property owners. If you're within a wellhead protection area, great, you're pretty well covered. But if you're not, so your neighbor next door could be bringing in all kinds of nasty stuff, and you wouldn't, you have no control over it. Sure, the municipality can try to do something, but again, it boils down to who's going to enforce it and who's going to regulate it. So I like to see, I like to move that we ask the implementation working group consult with the eastern counterparts to see if there's anything that sort of makes sense that could be brought forward for consideration for the committee to protect these private wells.
Okay, John, just so I'm clear, then you're putting forward a motion asking staff to do some consultation on private wells?
To discuss the issue of providing moving some of the protection measures onto private wells. Like we have right now, currently, all these regulations deal with municipal wells. To try to move all the private wells into the same sphere would be impractical. You're not going to have a private owner have a A, B, C, D, and all that sort of stuff. That's not very impractical. And how are you going to enforce it? But there must be some sort of a mechanism or some sort of perhaps there isn't, but perhaps there is that some of these other SPs are talking about that might be applicable to us.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll have Caitlin read the motion back. So then I'll ask for a seconder.
Okay, the motion would be for the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee to direct staff to work with the implementation working group and consult with the Eastern Source Protection regions and bring back a report for consideration on what the Source Protection Committee could consider for the protection of private wells.
Thank you, Caitlin. You've heard John's motion. Do I need a seconder, please?
Oh, I don't want to second that. I just like to comment though when it's appropriate.
Okay, we're just looking for the seconder right now, Chris. Seconder, Linda, thank you. Which would open the floor to you now, Chris.
Yeah, no, I can't support that. It's a terrible idea. There's already the same protections, just not spelled out as much under a regulation 903 in the Wells Best Management Practice Manual. Well construction specifications are nearly identical, but if you go with the requirements under OREG 903, there's nothing to be gained and a lot to lose to go to that level. I don't see any positive outcome of doing that. It's yeah, I can't support it.
Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, I can't support that either in this fact. Due to the fact that in rural Ontario, most are farmers, and there is the environmental farm plan, which actually looks at the protection of the wellhead. So I'm just making that comment to you. Okay, that works better now. Do you want me to start again? Or are you okay? Okay, so we're recording. And with respect, I can't support that due to the fact that there is a lot of work done on the environmental farm plan, which was done, I don't know, 25, 30, no more than that, 30 or some odd years ago to help farmers protect their own source of water, which you would be referring to in most rural wells.
Yes, George, please.
Thank you. I think the issue is here that there are regulations already in place to protect the environment, and virtually any location that's not municipally serviced has the right to drill a water well. And so I think we need to work within the context of the regulations as they currently exist to cover environmental protection. And I'm not sure that I would agree with Chris. I don't think that there's any. If we put this to the committee to study, I think they're going to come back with the answer that there really isn't anything further we could do that will really improve the add regulations that would be a benefit to people.
Linda, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have difficulty hearing you, actually. I too am not going to support that motion. I feel there is sufficient regulations in place, and I don't want to burden the especially the farmers any further, or private well owners. Thank you.
In Fawn, I believe you had your hand up. No. Fawn, you are on mute. I've been waved off. She's good. Any further discussion on that motion? I guess we're going to have to go through a recorded vote on this one again. Yes, Alan.
Thank you. Just a question that's coming to my mind. Through you to staff, I remember a number of meetings ago we had correspondence. I think it was the Canadian Environmental Law Association, and they had put forward a position that, and I think it was all private wells, or maybe it was just private communal wells. I can't recall the details right now, but maybe you could clarify that for me. Is there, because it seemed to me there was like a third category. There was still some communal wells that, because if you supply more than 5 homes, you fall under the other regulations. But I think there was, maybe they were just including everybody that wasn't registered as a public system. But anyway, I just remember that report coming forward, and it was a lot of work done, and there was some very compelling arguments as to there was some benefits to having this looked into further. But again, I don't have that in front of me now, and I can't recall the details, but I was hoping you could. Thanks.
So through you, Chair, I'm not sure of the details of exactly what Alan is referencing. We could certainly look into that and bring something back to the committee. And again, the implementation working group may be aware of that. I'm not sure if this was before I joined, but I can certainly bring something back.
Thank you, Sherry. Any further questions or discussion? Caitlin, you're up. Sorry, Beth, I missed your hand there.
Not a problem at all. Just, I definitely remember what's being referred to, the SELA recommendations. I don't remember all of the details, but I know that I'm pretty sure there was a call from SELA to expand the Clean Water Act to incorporate private wells. But beyond that, I can't remember the details either.
Thank you, Beth. Any further discussion? Call the question then.
So this is the call for the vote. Alan Dale,
Yes.
Larry Davis, Linda Dixon, Amy Domaratsky, Paul Emerson, Chris Garretts,
No.
Andrew Henry, Ken Hunsberger, Matthew Yarnig,
Yes.
Lauren Jones. Oh, no, she's absent. Sorry. Ralph Kruger,
Yes.
Ian McDonald, and Ian, can you please state who you're voting on behalf of?
Yeah. No for everyone. Proxy for Jeff Morose and Peter Ryder.
Okay, Alex Pickett,
Yes.
Vaughn Salt,
I'm sorry, can you repeat what I'm voting on? I couldn't hear everything.
yes, I will reread the
What the
motion.
motion, yeah.
That the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee directs staff to work with the implementation working group and consult with the Eastern Source Protection regions to bring back a report to see if anything can be done for the SBC's consideration of protection of private wells.
I'm gonna go with no.
George Schneider.
No.
John Zapoulis moved the motion, assuming it's still yes. And Linda Vandendriessche,
No.
Brian Whitwell,
I'll vote yes.
I'll have to tally the vote. Stand by. Okay, you'll have to bear with us here. We have 9 votes in favor, 9 votes opposed. So the committee is split on this motion. I will leave it with you, Mr. Chair, if there's anything else, any further discussion that we should have, or if perhaps there could be another motion to defer and after we bring something back at the next meeting, we could vote on this matter. Again, with further information from staff.
Well, I'll open the floor for discussion on Caitlin's findings. Yes, Alan or Alex, sorry. Don't fight over.
Oh, okay, thanks. Well, yeah, a tie vote's a lost vote, so I guess we're no further ahead here, but it is a topic that's came up before for discussion, and I would just suggest that maybe if staff could find that piece of correspondence we got a couple years ago from SELA and maybe just get a little bit more information on what the other SPCs have been doing on it. And I mean, we just defeated a motion having staff look into this, and yet that's what I'm asking is for staff to look into it and bring us some information. So that would be my suggestion, though, is that they get a little bit more background stuff and that then we can make a decision as to how far we want to pursue this. Thanks.
So through you, Chair, maybe can I propose that we kind of change it up? The original motion was for the implementation working group to look into this. Staff can bring a very brief update to the SPC, and then from there we can decide if further action is needed by the implementation working group, if that's okay with the committee.
Yes, Len.
So in view that this is a tied vote, I would ask that the motion be tabled until staff bring back and include items that are in place for landowner wellhead protection at this point and give us further information so that we can reconsider the motion at our next meeting.
That sounds like a motion to me. And Alex, you're going to second that?
No, I was going to ask a procedural question. Procedurally, is it not defeated following Robert's rules? And I have another municipal friend nodding yes. Motion should be defeated. If anything that's a tie for a recorded or tie vote, it's defeated.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So the question on the table here is whether to put forward another motion for staff to bring forward more information based on the discussion happening here.
No, the motion procedure.
The original motion is defeated for the implementation working group. So the question on the floor then is whether the committee would like to put forward another motion for staff to bring forward a report on the information that was requested through the discussion.
Yeah, I'll leave that with you.
Since I don't have a vote, are you going to second Alex's suggestion? Sorry.
No, I'll leave it to the floor.
Okay. Okay, thank you, John. Sorry. Alicia? Sorry, Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, it is a defeated motion. Therefore, unless there's someone else on the floor wishes to bring up another motion, I think it's done.
Andrew.
I think we start from basic principles. I think we go back to the SELA, just request that staff circulate the letter was received from the Canadian Environmental Law Association to the committee members for their information. And then once we receive that, we can consider this motion or further discussions at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Linda, you're 100% right. As we've said, the 9-9 defeats the motion. I, as chair, don't have a vote. We're getting new direction here, a new motion by Andrew, seconded by Linda. Caitlin's nodding her head.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I don't understand your point. Directing it to me is, what are we talking about here? If there's a new motion on the floor, that's great. We'll address that one. But I don't understand your point, sir.
We're looking for a new motion on the floor, and we have that now, Linda.
Okay, so I will read the new motion. The original motion has been defeated by the tie vote. The new motion that is now on the table is for the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee to direct staff to circulate the letter that was provided by the Canadian Environmental Law Association on this subject to the Source Protection Committee members for their information. And at that time, this isn't part of the motion, but at that time, any further discussion or future motions could be brought up then.
Somebody in senior position said, "We will deal with this." Most people agreed, and they said they would deal with it. Now that's changed. Before we get into that,
Brian, what did you say? I missed that. Okay, we've got a suggestion on the floor, if I can use that. Staff is willing to come back and report back on that next meeting. Will that work for everybody? I'm seeing people nod their heads. Linda?
Mr. Chair, is that a motion you're putting on the floor to direct staff to bring it to next meeting? And that we just vote on it?
So I don't believe we need a motion for this. I can circulate the information to the committee. And the committee can revisit whether there is a motion to put forward at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. You're just directing staff then.
Are we good with that? I've seen a few people nodding heads. Okay, thank you. Wow. John, when you raise other business, you're really testing me. Our next SPC meeting is October the 24th at 1 o'clock.
More new business?
I'm sorry. Then.
So there was mention earlier, and one of my concerns is I can't call it, or I can call it, deep repository of carbon along the Great Lakes in the retired or unused natural gas wells along Lake Erie. I wonder if there is, well, MOE is here, but I mean, I wonder if there is any position that we should take in oversight of that. The action along the Great Lakes, especially Lake Erie, where they will be doing, they're investigating deep storage of carbon. It's a question.
And as I referred to earlier, I actually attended the presentation myself because I'm interested in that. But I open it to the floor, of course, for direction.
So through you, Chair, I can just add, I'm not familiar with the background on this. I don't believe there's a direct connection with source protection, but certainly would be interested in learning more. I don't see the ministry bringing anything forward at this time, but perhaps if they have anything to bring forward, they can do so at our next update.
I would appreciate that. If that could be, if we can direct the ministry. Yeah.
Something that we might even consider is inviting the M&R to come in and do their presentation, which they've been doing, but I just throw that out there. Staff can talk about that later.
It is. It is, yeah.
So next SPC meeting, October 24th. Linda? On?
Just really quickly, that would be a great idea. Yeah, I think we definitely need to know more about it, especially because I don't really want to make the statement that it doesn't affect source protection because I'm not aware that it does or does not. You know, if there were leaks or anything, like I don't know what those risks are, so I definitely want to know more about it. Because if we do have to take a position, whether we're for or against it, but we should have our ducks in a row. And Steve, I just want to say, great job. I know it's only your second meeting. I thought.
Thank you, Vaughn. Third time, October 24th at 1 o'clock. Looking for a motion to adjourn. John, thank you everyone for your time and patience with your new chair today.